Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you also on behalf of our Executive Secretary, Monica Stankiewicz, to this special Minamata Online event on promoting gender equality in the implementation of the Convention. It is special because it is an information session on the document that the Secretariat has prepared for COP4 and also on the overall agenda item, which will be discussed during the upcoming COP. But it is also meant as an opportunity for parties and other stakeholders to share experiences and ideas on this important topic on the occasion of the International Women's Day, which is today, as you all know. Today, I'll be joined by my colleague, Marianne Bailey, Program Management Officer with the Secretariat. And I'll also be speaking. I am Lara Ognibene, Legal and Program Officer with the Secretariat, and also Gender Focal Point for the Secretariat. I would like to go to the next slide where you will find a few housekeeping notes before going to the substance of the event. So you may wish to test your speaker and microphone settings by opening the audio and video menu on the top left corner of your screen to ensure that you will be able to hear and speak correctly. You can open the participant panel and the chat panel by clicking the respective icon on the bottom right corner of your screen. If the moderator opens the floor and you wish to take the floor, please click the raise hand icon that appears next to your name on the participants panel. The moderator will call names based on the order of raised hands and allow you to unmute. When you are named, please unmute yourself and speak. When your speaking is over, kindly mute yourself and click the lower hand icon. You may also wish to type questions in the chat box and send to everyone. If you need any technical assistance, please put your message in the chat box and send it to the host. Kindly note that this session is recorded and broadcasted. Recording of this session and the presentation slides will be made available through the Minamata Convention website after the session. Okay, thank you. And we can move now to the next slide and move into the substance of this event. This slide is to show you where gender fits in the overall tentative schedule of work for COP 4.2. As you can see, it will be the agenda item 4L will be open for discussion on Thursday, 24th of March at the upcoming COP 4.2 in Bali, Indonesia. And this will be actually the first time that the COP will have an official agenda item on this matter, on gender. We can move to the next slide, where why do we have it on the agenda this time? So the issue of gender is, unlike other MEAs, it is reflected in the text of the convention. Since the beginning of the life of the convention, gender concerns are part of the work that needs to be undertaken under the convention. For example, in the preamble to the convention, there is a note of the parties' awareness of health concerns, especially in developing countries, resulting from exposure to mercury of vulnerable populations, especially women and children, and through them, future generations. And again, the term vulnerable populations is used throughout the text of the convention, for example, in Article 16 on health aspects, in Article 18 on public information, awareness and education, in Article 19 on research, development, and monitoring, and also in Article 22 on effectiveness evaluation. There is this reference to the needs of vulnerable populations. And finally, in Annex C, paragraph 1I, national action plans to address artisanal and small-scale gold mining are to include strategies to prevent the exposure of vulnerable populations, particularly children and women of childbearing age, especially pregnant women, to mercury used in artisanal and small-scale gold mining. So we see that gender concerns are present in the text of the convention and therefore have been the object of the work of the Secretariat throughout the years of during which the convention has been into force. We can move to the next slide. Yes, so in this context, the Secretariat has prepared a document for COP 4.2. It's document 4/22 on mainstreaming gender. And the purpose of the document is, let's say, twofold. First of all, the document provides an overview of ongoing efforts to mainstream gender in the work of the Secretariat. So activities that already have been implemented by the Secretariat to implement the relevant provisions of the convention in this field. But also the document identifies specific actions to be undertaken in the medium and long term to ensure that the principles of gender equality are embedded in the activities not only undertaken by the Secretariat, but also possibly by parties and other stakeholders under the convention. So we can move to the next slide. Here, I would like to give you a brief overview of the evolution of this matter throughout the COP life, let's put it that way. So starting at COP 3, where it was decided to include gender as a focus area of the convention's program of work and budget for the biennium 2020-2021. In particular, activity 13 of the program of work includes the development of a gender strategy with the objective of mainstreaming gender into the program of work. And to achieve this objective, the Secretariat was to ensure that its programs and projects were planned and implemented from a gender equality perspective by including gender issues in the Secretariat's capacity building projects and programs and cooperation with other international and external partners on gender-related issues at the international, regional, and national levels. So this is the part where my colleague Marianne will speak about. This is what we have already done in response to this request of COP3. And it will be also the first part of our presentation today. Then moving on to COP4, this is, we can stay on the same slide, thank you. Moving on to COP4, and during the second part of this presentation today, I would like to give you a sense of what's expected from COP4 and what could be expected in the next COP when it comes to this issue of gender. So as I mentioned at COP4, the Secretariat prepared a document on mainstreaming gender, and COP4 may wish to consider and adopt a decision as proposed in Annex 1 to this agenda item. And we will go more into detail of what the document says and what the proposed decision says too. And finally, the possibility will be then to come to adopt a full-fledged gender action plan at the next COP5. And we will discuss this possibility at the end of our presentation today. So for now, I would like to invite my colleague Marianne to give us an update on where we stand today with gender mainstreaming. Over to you, Marianne.
Thank you very much, Laura, and good day and good evening to everyone who's participating. Thank you for your time. In the next slide, I want to cover how gender mainstreaming is already an important part of the convention and Secretariat's support to parties in the implementation of the convention. And I'm mainly going to focus on how the financial mechanism of the convention addresses gender. But of course, this session concerns how gender considerations really permeate all of our implementation support. So Article 13 of the convention defines the financial mechanism of the convention. It includes the Global Environment Facility and the specific international program, which both provide support to eligible parties from developing countries and countries with economies in transition to support their implementation of their obligations under the convention. And we also like to recognize a related fund that we don't manage through the convention, but it is the Special Program for Institutional Strengthening in the Chemicals and Waste Cluster. All of these programs have requirements and rules and procedures for considering gender in project development, review, reporting, and evaluation, and all of that with the aim of ensuring that implementation that our parties undertake takes full account of gender aspects. In the realm of chemicals and waste management, the gender-specific exposure routes and impacts are particularly important. So there is a focus on that. There's also a need to do inclusive stakeholder engagement and awareness raising to ensure that the special gender-specific needs and concerns are recognized and taken into account when programs reach out to stakeholders and develop awareness raising programs. These programs should recognize differentiated impacts of mercury management decisions and should involve women in policy development and decision making, and even engagement in the project management. We have a number of projects that have specific sort of pledges to ensure equality of participation in project management. In the next slide, I want to talk a bit more about the Global Environment Facility. The GEF Council approved a GEF policy on gender equality in November of 2017. And that policy demonstrated the GEF's increased ambition to ensure gender equality and promote women's empowerment across its operations. And through this policy, the GEF seeks to support women's improved access, use, and control of resources, enhance women's participation and role in natural resources decision-making processes, targeting women as specific beneficiaries and creating opportunities from sustainable livelihoods and income-generating opportunities, and investing in women's skills and capacity by supporting capacity development of different groups, including communities and women's organizations. And in the next slide, I want to drill down into one of the specific sectors for which the gender aspects are crucially important, covered by our convention, is the artisanal and small-scale gold mining sector. Millions of women around the world are engaged in this sector, and they face particular occupational and socioeconomic hazards and vulnerabilities. And the key way that the convention approaches this sector is through national action plans for those parties who declare that the mercury use in artisanal small-scale gold mining in their territories is more than. And the NAPs, as Laura mentioned earlier, in their Annex C, must include strategies to prevent the exposure of vulnerable populations, particularly children and women of childbearing age, especially pregnant women, to mercury used in artisanal and small-scale gold mining. So our colleagues in the Chemical and Health branch of UNEP, who are very engaged in working with countries on their national action plans, and I should note that it's not just parties that are doing national action plans. There have been 44 countries to date supported by the Global Environment Facility to develop their ASGM national action plans, of which 16 have been finalized and submitted to the Secretariat and are available on our website. But the Chemicals and Health branch of UNEP is quite engaged in supporting countries to develop these plans. And in mid-2021, they issued a document on incorporating gender dimensions into national strategy setting in chemicals management. And it covers not only Minamata Convention national action plans for ASGM, but also Stockholm Convention national implementation plans. And the joint guidance is available for use to support gender mainstream in the development of the NAPs in line with Annex C of our convention, as well as for the development of NIPs under the Stockholm Convention. And it provides guidance on incorporating gender dimensions throughout the process and into strategic content of both the NAPs and the NIPs. And it has annexes that present detailed considerations and tools relevant for both, and other tools specific to NAPs or NIPs. It covers topics like engaging stakeholders, guaranteeing a consultative process, data collection. It also covers the gender-focused approaches for all of the technical and environmental strategies, the policy, regulatory, and institutional strategies, the health strategies, socioeconomic strategies developed for NAPs, because the national action plans are designed to be very flexible and very in tune and responsive to national and local circumstances. So they're not a one-size-fits-all approach for parties to take. They are very amenable to nationally and locally appropriate responses and approaches. So this guidance really enables the gender mainstreaming into all those approaches. In the next slide, just a little bit more on ASGM, which I have to remind our viewers is only one of the many sectors covered by the Minamata Convention. But the key program that the Global Environment Facility has put forth to address mercury used in ASGM is the Planet Gold program, which is now active in 23 countries, and it really takes the sector and tries to transform it to adopt mercury-free approaches from mine to market. And one of the programs that's affiliated with Planet Gold is Ecuador's program for the environmentally sound management of chemical substances in their life cycle. And I pull this one out because, well, all the Planet Gold programs have taken a really strong approach to gender, but the Ecuador program has some very good examples, including a quote that they put forth in one of their documents, which is that the mining system stands out for the feminization of poverty and the undervaluation of female work. So we know that women are really kind of experiencing a double whammy with respect to the pandemic and global supply chain interruptions, in addition to their existing vulnerabilities as workers in the ASGM sector. And so I also want to note that both the International Labor Organization and OECD and many, many others have relevant work going on that relevant to this sector. including an OECD multi-stakeholder steering group 2019 statement on implementing gender-responsive due diligence in the mineral supply chains, which is to ensure that every project is started with a gender lens in design and management. So the reality of women in the mining sector led this Ecuador program to develop a video that was called Women with a Will for Gold. And it's a really nice short video that can be found on the Planet Gold website. It shows the history of the mining women in one of the towns and her working conditions, her desire to improve. And it kind of invites you to reflect on the idea of complementing or changing economic activity to really support women. In the next slide, I want to move on to the specific international program, which is the other part of our financial mechanism. And gender is one of the appraisal criteria and is a required application element for applicants to the specific international program. The program is now supporting 24 countries in various stages of implementation through our 3 rounds of programming. So in our application guidance for the SIP, Specific International Program, there's information on how best to address gender in the applications to demonstrate how the project itself will address gender considerations. So it does that with a number of the application guidelines recommend a number of different ways to do that, such as generating sex disaggregated data that reflects the impacts of mercury pollution, planning and organizing awareness raising activities that educate relevant stakeholders on gender differentiated and socially determined impacts of mercury management, promoting multi-stakeholder approaches to ensure effective participation of different groups, including women in policy development and decision-making, creating terms of reference for project staff that ensure equal opportunity for women and men, and where applicable, even requiring skills and expertise in gender, and then also monitoring the benefits, participation, and feedback among women and men during the project activities, and incorporating remedial actions that promote gender equality throughout the project life cycle. So some of our specific international programs have really drilled down and done a great job. All of our applicants have done this quite well, and some have really highlighted this focus. And so in the next slide, I'd like to just give you examples. In Armenia, this was a project on phasing mercury out of products, such as mercury added lamps and other products in Armenia. And the implementation was carried out through Armenian Women for Health and a Healthy Environment. That group was engaged throughout the project, and they really did an outstanding job of ensuring stakeholder engagement and ensuring that the information that these groups had about the use and availability of products was really brought to the fore. That project has just finished, and we're in the process of reviewing its final report. And if you'd like to learn more about it, we have a session, a side event on the specific international program tomorrow, in which some of these projects are highlighted. In Iran, we had a project on decommissioning chlor-alkali facilities in the petrochemical industry, and the program managers there developed a job hazard analysis for gender-specific risk assessment, guidance on worker health protection during demolition activities, biomonitoring plans, etc. And that really put an important gender lens on the health risks associated with mercury management during decommissioning. Antigua and Barbuda's regional project has 10 countries that are now collaborating through the Caribbean Region Mercury Monitoring Network to monitor mercury risks in the environment and food chain in support of policy development. So this includes studies of mercury levels in women of childbearing age and more. And in Zambia, the project will include a survey on mercury exposure in vulnerable populations, public awareness, and a phase-out strategy for mercury-added products, including skin-like. So a very specific gender focus there. And then in our third round of applications, the Rwanda project is worth mentioning. This project hasn't started yet, but it has been approved. And it included that the National Gender Monitoring Office is part of the National Mercury Working Group established to implement the project, which includes even gender indicators in its project log frame. So really impressive work there to take our recommendations on incorporating gender aspects in projects development and implementation into account. So I hope that gives a good picture, at least of how our financial mechanism components are handling the gender aspects of parties implementation. With that, I turn it back to you, Clara.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I think this was very insightful, very interesting to see how gender concern have been also addressed at the national level to implement the convention. Let me just move to letting you know of other activities that have been undertaken during the intersessional period since COP3 to respond to the request of the COP to further integrate gender in the work of the Secretariat. So under activity 13 of our program of work, and thanks to the general financial support of Sweden, the Secretariat has carried out several activities geared towards mainstreaming gender. So in November 2020, the Secretariat issued a call for information on gender and mercury, inviting parties and interested stakeholders to submit scientific, technical, and policy information on gender and mercury. The Secretariat received submissions from 10 countries and 16 stakeholders, for which, of course, that I would like to thank. The information that we received was then used to develop communication and awareness raising material, including a Minamata Insight publication on gender and mercury. You see it on the right hand side of the screen of this slide, and the publication is available on our website. And also with information, a video was produced, and it was launched actually last year on occasion of the 2021 International Women's Day. Also the Secretariat is planning to further activities to share the information through online events like this one and others, but also we are developing an online training course on gender and mercury that will be prepared also in collaboration with the Informea team. And also another development was the nomination of a gender focal point within the Secretariat to coordinate gender activities within the Secretariat. And I was appointed in November of 2020. And also to coordinate activities, but also to represent the Secretariat in the network of MEA gender focal points, which was established by UNEP in December 2020. And then another development was the preparation of a gender roadmap. We'll go into, we'll discuss this in the next slide more in detail. If you can move, please, Shariful, to the next slide. Yes, next. Where we can have a look of what we have prepared for the consideration of COP 4.2, and therefore what is in the document that will be discussed under agenda 4L, gender. The document, as I mentioned earlier, is document 4/22, mainstreaming gender. And in the document, besides an update on what the Secretariat has done so far in the field of gender mainstreaming, and as also presented by Marianne, the Secretariat developed a gender roadmap for the Minamata Convention of Mercury. Why did we develop this roadmap? First of all, to analyze current initiatives undertaken by other multilateral environmental agreements and United Nations bodies in the field of gender that are relevant to us, and see where our contribution would fit. Also in the context of other MEAs and the broader UN environment. And then, with this overview in mind, the gender roadmap identifies some priority actions to be undertaken primarily by the Secretariat, but also by parties and other stakeholders to further mainstream gender in its activities. So the roadmap was developed in accordance with applicable gender-related rules and regulation and policies of the UN and also of UNEP, which has a gender strategy in place. And also the draft roadmap was shared with the network of multilateral environmental agreement gender officers established by UNEP for their review. And the gender roadmap is included in Annex 2 to the document for consideration by the COP. Next slide, please. So here you see the text of the draft decision, which is included in Annex 1 to the document on gender mainstreaming. So what are the action points for the COP? The COP is invited to note the gender roadmap, which is in the annex to the document, and parties are also invited to support the Secretariat in mainstreaming gender, including through the development of a gender action plan for Minamata Convention during the 2022-2023 biennium. And these action points are reflected in the proposed text of the draft decision to be considered by the COP. Next slide, please. So these efforts also fit into a larger UN-wide efforts to support gender equality. We have, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals, in particular Goal 5 on achieving gender equality and empower all women and girls. And so the effort of developing a strategic approach to gender mainstreaming within the work of the Secretariat and beyond the work of the Secretariat by parties and other stakeholders under the convention fits into this is supposed to contribute to the achievement of Goal 5. Also, in particular, and more recently, in March 2019, Resolution 417 of the United Nations Environment Assembly, titled Promoting Gender Equality and Human Rights and Empowerment of Women and Girls in Environmental Governance, reaffirms the importance of states respecting, protecting, and fulfilling their human rights obligation, including women's rights, when implementing environmental legislation and policy, and invited member states to prioritize the implementation of gender policies and action plans developed under the multilateral environmental agreements to which they are party. So there is this invitation by UNEA to develop gender action plans under the MEAs. And as an effort by UNEP also to coordinate and support this development and implementation of already existing gender action plans by MEAs, UNEP established a network of multilateral environmental agreement gender offices and focal points to enable information sharing on gender-related matters and to share information about upcoming seminars, publication, announcement, but also capacity building opportunities in an informal setting. And also many or several MEAs already have gender action plans in place. This includes the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Conventions, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and also the Convention to Combat Desertification. So we see that older MEAs already have embarked in this process of developed a more strategic approach on how to handle gender issue in the implementation of the convention, and the Minamata, as a younger and new convention, is following the same process, also with the ability to benefit from the experiences of our sister MEAs in this field. Let's move to the next slide, please. So here you can see on the left side of the slide the roadmap that was developed and is now in the Annex 2 of the document for consideration by COP4. So the gender roadmap includes, as I mentioned, a list of prioritized actions to be undertaken primarily by the Secretariat, but with the idea to also look at the medium and long term of how gender considerations could be further mainstreamed into the work undertaken by other stakeholders, by parties in implementing the convention. So the two top priorities identified in the roadmap were the development of a gender action plan under the convention for mainstreaming gender considerations into all aspects of the work be undertaken under the convention, with clear indicators for monitoring progress. And the second one was the appointment of a gender focal point within the Secretariat, and that's already being done. The roadmap also identifies specific actions to be undertaken in the medium and long term to ensure that principles of gender equality are embedded in the activities undertaken, not only by the Secretariat, but also by others, by parties and other stakeholders. If we move to the next slide, yes, you can see a list of other high priority actions in the roadmap, listed in the roadmap. And these include initiate decision making on the process, actors, timeline to develop a gender action plan. And this is what we're kind of starting not today, but with proposing the document and the proposed draft decision for consideration by the COP. Another priority action is to incorporate gender activities into work plans, main strategic planning documents, and budget plans, to organize capacity building, training events, and workshops for the Secretariat staff to enhance our capacity to implement gender mainstreaming activities. To develop a media plan for organizing efforts on public engagement and awareness on the topic, to review all Secretariat documents and reporting protocols for gender visibility, to develop targeted funding plan for gender activities under the Secretariat, to sustain the MEA gender focal point network, as we're already doing, to monitor and maintain gender parity in staffing, and also to prepare an annual report to parties on gender activities. This is a list. It's a living document in the sense that comments on this list are welcome. input. Some parties have already submitted some comments and positive and constructive inputs to the list. And so though your views and comments are very welcome on how you support the plan, or if you would introduce some changes as well. We can move now to this next slide, the presentation. So now that we have developed and hopefully COP4 will support the roadmap, the next step will be to develop an action plan. So why an action plan? Why do we need an action plan? So the action plan would provide a blueprint for actions, including targets and indicators of progress to promote gender equality and mainstreaming within the Secretariat and in the Minamata Convention's activity undertaken by partners, parties, and other stakeholders. So how do we project to the exterior also the efforts of mainstreaming gender in the implementation of the convention? So the purpose of the plan is to support and advance a gender-sensitive implementation of the Minamata Convention with the support of parties, with the financial support of parties too, and with an increase of the understanding that to implement the convention, a gender responsive implementation is crucial. So the purpose would be to increase the effectiveness of the Minamata Convention by mainstreaming gender awareness through its implementation, to provide guidance to parties and partners in bringing a gender lens to their research, evidence gathering, and also public awareness activities under the convention, and to provide a framework that makes visible the benefits of gender mainstreaming to all Minamata Convention actors. And finally, my next slide identifies a possible expected outcomes of having a roadmap in place. And these would be that stakeholders, partners, and parties to the Minamata Convention at all levels develop capacities to design and implement gender responsive plans and programs. Then women and girls, and especially members of indigenous communities, are given equal opportunities for meaningful participation in developing programs, plans, and policies that are undertaken to achieve the goals of the convention. Also, economic empowerment initiatives, including efforts to develop alternative livelihoods that aim to reduce or eliminate dangerous use of and exposure to mercury, provide equal opportunities for men and women. And as projects and parties increasingly incorporate gender awareness in their activities, there will be ongoing systemic knowledge building and sharing on the gender dimensions of human exposures to mercury and mercury. So this is our presentation today, and it was meant to give you really a broad overview of what gender and mercury means today in the current work that is being done to implement the convention today, and what it could look like in the future if we want to align Minamata with similar efforts that are being undertaken by other MEAs and by UNEP and the UN at large, and we could develop such a action plan to give us this blueprint for action on gender and mercury. I would like to stop here. I know we still have some time for discussion, and this was our intention today to give allow some discussions. Hopefully, some of you have something to say. Of course, we are welcome to answer any questions you may have on the information presented on the COP document, and therefore this is obviously the time to ask. But if you also would like to share with us your experiences, your ideas on how this process is or could be in the future, you are very welcome. Let me stop here and open the floor for the discussion to start. Thank you very much.
Laura, we already have one question in the chat, and maybe I will read it for you. It says, will the information provided on gender and Mercury be available via the Minamata Convention website, or are there other sources of information on gender and Mercury available elsewhere?
Yes, thank you. So all the information we have presented today is available on our website. You can find it primarily on the document that has been presented for the COP. So you can go to COP for documents and look for document 22 on gender mainstreaming. The publication that I mentioned are also available on our website. I can send you a link so you can have a look at the publication that has been produced. If you have more questions specifically to SIP, or for example, on our website, we have a dedicated webpage on SIP activities, on national action plans as well. So our COP, our Minamata Convention website is the go-to website for all the information that you may need to find on gender and Mercury, and also for the information that has been presented today. Should you have any more specific information, of course, Marianne and I would be happy to answer your questions also in writing later.
And we also had a request for the slides of this presentation. Of course, as Laura said, those will be posted, both the video recording and the slides. And our colleague, Malgorzata Dilo, has posted the link to the guidance that I mentioned on incorporating gender dimensions into national strategy setting in chemicals management. So that link is available here in the chat. And she also informs me that it will soon be available also in French and Spanish. So that's very good news.
Thank you very much to our colleague in the branch. Of course, the branch website is also a very important source of information, and I will put in the chat box now also our website link for your information.
I do see one more question, Lara. It says that you mentioned positive responses from parties thus far, but are you anticipating any challenges to the content included for the decision by the COP?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is a good question. As I mentioned, this is the first time we have a agenda item on gender in our COP. We have had a positive signal that gender should be included in our work program of work, and we have worked according to the mandate received by COP3, and we have looked around and we see what would be the next steps for our further engagement in this field, and how we further gender mainstreaming in the future. And I think that was the effort made to develop the roadmap. So we have received some comments from parties who were supportive of the initiative and provided some language to be added to the roadmap. But again, very constructive comments so far. Not many comments. We are eager to see how parties will receive this document, the COP, and hopefully there will be wide support to this approach. But we are, in your hands, and hopefully this decision will be adopted without any problems. We are not aware of any specific concern, but stand ready to address them in case there are. And as I mentioned, we are presenting the roadmap as a living document. We are open to comments, and they will be incorporated in preparation for the COP, and to facilitate the adoption of the decision as indicated in the document.
I don't see any further questions at this point.
I see a question on the UNFCCC.
Yes, that's from the same requester who
okay, I'm sorry.
Notes that she's very engaged in the UNFCCC process on gender. So that's very good experience for us to learn from. We appreciate it.
Yes, we have definitely looked into the UNFCCC experience and process that is very informative. And as we come after many other MEAs have already engaged in this kind of process, we are learning from these experiences and hope to build on those to push forward this topic in the implementation of our convention. Of course, it is a process. By agreeing to move forward in line with the action plan, it's the beginning of the process that in the next intersessional period may end up with developing a more comprehensive strategy on gender and Mercury, and we call it an action plan. But we are aware that it is a process that may only start now and may hopefully end into the adoption of an action plan at COP5 or later if needed. I see that say the same commenter agree that it is a process and there are incremental steps. I think that's the approach we are using by starting from the text of the convention. We in Minamata have, unlike other MEAs, we already have in the text of the convention a lot to work with to start developing activities that incorporate gender concerns, and like it has been presented by Rianne in how we manage the SIP and our financial mechanism, including the JEF, and in how we provide guidance on developing national action plans. So we can already do these kind of activities in line with what's already provided for in our convention and in our COP decisions. But now this is a process to bring this further in a more comprehensive and strategic manner, so that we can set some objectives and track some progress and have a recurring perhaps reporting opportunities back to the COP on how we are mainstreaming gender in the work undertaken under the convention. So we keep this topic alive as we implement the convention throughout the life of the convention. There is a question on the online gender mainstreaming course. We are in the process of developing it. Our colleagues of the Informia team of UNEP are helping us with that. We managed to identify some resources to develop the course. We already have the structure and the content of the course ready. We just need to develop the visuals. So I cannot give you a concrete timeline, but soon after the COP, of course, within a few months. But we already started. The content is already there, and Oh, I see another question. Who can join the network that you mentioned? So the only network that I mentioned is the UNEP MEA focal points network. This is a network established by UNEP, which puts together focal point like myself and other focal points in other MEAs. They are both UNEP administered and non-UNEP administered MEAs. So we also have UNFCCC in the network along with CBD and BRS colleagues. So it is a network for gender focal points that have been appointed within the secretariats for information sharing purposes, and with the idea that UNEP and UNEA has invited member states to promote the establishment of action plans under the MEAs to which they are parties. So it is an effort to promote and further coordinate and keep alive this invitation for parties to facilitate the development of such plans, but also for circulating information. So it is a small network for internal to to UNEP and MEAs, multilateral environmental agreements. I see that hopefully, I hope this has been informative at least, and I hope this goes to all our participants, be it parties that I see attending this event with other stakeholders. We look forward to continuing this discussion at the COP when this agenda item will be open on Thursday. And of course, for those of you who come to Bali, we'll be there in case there are other questions, or if you'd like to provide further comments on the proposed roadmap, and if you'd like to share ideas or more information with us, we welcome you to do so. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Marianne for more SIP specific questions or requests for information and other capacity building efforts that the Secretariat is undertaking. Marianne is coordinating all that. And we'll all be in Bali, so you will finally be able to meet you in person if you come to Bali, and we'll continue then the discussion there. I don't know, Marianne, would you like to add something?
No,
Point?
I think you've covered it. There was one last question on whether there's an organized network for those interested in gender aspects from civil society specific to our convention. And I'm not aware of one, but I do know that many of the civil society organizations that we work with, including some that are participating here today, are very active on gender issues. So it's not a single network, but our main stakeholders are well engaged.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
and thanks from my part for all of you for participating.
Yes, thank you so much, Marianne, for bringing the experience of the SIP. I think that was very, very interesting. And with that, I'll say goodbye to you and hopefully see you soon. And this is, as we said today, it's a process. This is we're starting the discussion. We're opening up this issue, and hopefully together we'll bring it forward to the COP and next and beyond that. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Bye-bye, everyone.